Every once in a while, an unexpected gem pops up. Even the smallest, most unheard of games can turn out to be massive success stories. In 2012, one of the most respected games in history was cancelled, forgotten, and then eventually brought back to life, immediately becoming a cult classic. This is the story of Sleeping Dogs, a game that somehow defied all odds and carved its rightful place in gaming history. But this still leaves several questions. Why didn't it get the sequel it deserved, and why did it even fail in the first place? Well, to understand that, we need to go back to where it all began. The initial idea of Sleeping Dogs came from Activision's Grand Theft Auto-esque true crime series, following True Crime New York. True Crime New York City is a 2005 action-adventure game, published on all systems by Activision, and is the second and final entry in the True Crime franchise after the 2003 True Crime Streets of LA. The game tells the story of Marcus Reed, a former New York City gang member turned police officer. On his first night on the job after receiving a promotion to detective in the organised crime unit, Reed witnesses the death of his mentor. Helped by an FBI agent who is investigating a mole in the OCU, Reed sets about finding out who killed his friend and bringing down the mole. The game features a 25 square mile recreation of the borough of Manhattan, with most street names, major landmarks, and highways reproduced with GPS accuracy. True Crime Hong Kong was playable from start to finish and virtually complete in terms of content prior to Activision pulling the plug due to an increase in budget and delays. According to Activision, these factors meant that the game would have to have been a pretty incredible success for them to have made an acceptable return on their investment. The game would be first introduced to the public by Activision at the 2009 Spike Video Game Awards, and Activision would announce that the game's release date was being pushed back to early 2011. The reasoning behind this delay was stated as being in order to give the development team more time to deliver the high-quality entertainment experience they envisioned for the game. Starting out as one big violent sandbox, the game eventually progressed to a playable demo. Art designers spent 7 days in Hong Kong, where they studied the city's environment and took more than 20,000 photos as reference, even going as far as interviewing ex-Triad members and retired cops. They wanted every detail to be perfect. The sound designers even spent 10 days recording authentic ambient noises. The game's attention to detail paid off in spades, as it showed a view of Asia through the filter of its action film industry. And even though character models looked like plastic dolls when viewed up close, and some gestures characters made were rigid and unnatural, none of that really mattered because the core experience was so captivating. But once 2011 came around, the game would be completely cancelled. It would be impossible for the finished product to compete in an open world genre because of the quality issues plaguing the final build. The game's producer was disappointed with Activision's decision and would go on record blaming other open world games such as Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption, along with the fact that the previous game in True Crime series was a critical and commercial failure, for being the reasoning behind Activision viewing the game as not being able to compete. The project that would become Sleeping Dogs was almost dead before it had the chance to live. In August of 2011, Square Enix would acquire the publishing rights to the game itself, but not to the True Crime franchise. The game would see a release date of August 2012 for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 and Windows. Within months, they'd added 60 people to the development team and gave United Front Games complete creative freedom. Free from the True Crime franchise, they rebranded as Sleeping Dogs and doubled down on what made their game unique. That meant creating one of the most authentic recreations of Hong Kong ever seen in gaming. The combat system was one of their key focuses, with design director Mike Scupa saying they refined it using feedback from Square Enix, with references drawn from Tony Jaa's The Protector. What started out as one big violent sandbox evolved into something special. The core gameplay of Sleeping Dogs consists of giving the player an open world environment in which to move around freely. Sleeping Dogs is played as an over-the-shoulder third-person perspective action-adventure game with role-playing elements. The player controls Wei Shen, a Chinese-American police officer, as he goes undercover to infiltrate the Sun On Yee Triad organization. On foot, the player character has the ability to walk, run, jump, and climb over obstacles and swim, as well as use weapons and martial arts in combat. Players also drive a variety of vehicles, including cars, boats, and motorbikes. The combat system revolves around hand-to-hand fighting, similar to Batman Arkham Asylum or Batman Arkham City's free-flow combat system. The cover system allows the player to move between cover, fire blindly, aim freely, and target a specific enemy, and individual body parts can also be targeted. Regarding the driving segments, several developers had also worked on previous Need for Speed titles, and while driving, Wade can get out and jump onto other moving vehicles. These were massive features for the time, and it wasn't really seen in any other game. Despite garnering fairly strong review scores on release, it ultimately failed to meet sales expectations and was deemed unsuccessful by Square Enix. However, the game has built up a cult following in the years since its release, with players praising the lived-in open-world environment, the nuanced melee combat, and the dramatic storytelling. Despite shipping 1.5 million copies, Square Enix somehow decided this wasn't enough. The planned sequel would have been incredible. United Front wanted players to experience both sides of the law through Wei Shen and his corrupt partner Henry Fang. They had ambitious plans for cross-play and cloud saves, letting players affect crime levels in each other's games. Even more impressive was the planned mobile integration, where players could manage the police force as Inspector Jane Teng. Square Enix had a rough 2013. Even though the publisher released 3 critically adored titles, which were Sleeping Dogs, Hitman Absolution, and the Tomb Raider reboot, it still reported a loss of over 61 million, leading to the CEO's resignation. Square Enix blamed the slump in sales on 2 factors. In a 2013 letter to shareholders, the company pointed to competition from other blockbuster game releases. That year saw massive titles like Grand Theft Auto 5, Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, and The Last of Us, among others, which forced Square Enix to offer more incentives to retailers in order to stay competitive. The other factors against Square Enix was the increasing popularity of mobile and social video games. In the same letter to shareholders, Square Enix noted the most recent success of its smartphone and social media-based games like Million Arthur. It suggests exploring ways to monetize its other properties with free-to-play versions. In the end, Square Enix bet on its more established properties and developed more Tomb Raider and Hitman games. Publisher tried to salvage Sleeping Dogs by turning it into a free-to-play open-world multiplayer game called Triad Wars. It was released in beta in 2015, but shut down in 2016 due to a lack of interest. A remastered version of Sleeping Dogs was released, subtitled Definitive Edition, in October 2014 for PC, PS, and Xbox One. It bundled together all the DLC content along with tweaks for gameplay and improved audio and visual quality. It's kept the title alive for a new generation and has ensured the title remains easily accessible. Since then though, despite many fans and critics praising the game, there have been no plans to revive the series, at least not in video game form. Tales of a live-action Sleeping Dog movie started in 2017, shortly after developer United Front Games closed its door for good the year before. Actor Donnie Yen, known for Star Wars and Ip Man, announced that he would be starring as protagonist Wei Shen in a live-action adaptation of the game. This obviously got fans excited, but it would prove to be the last fans would hear about this for a while. More recently though, Yen took to Twitter in July 2020 to excitedly announce he was preparing for his next movie and challenge, using the hashtag Sleeping Dogs at the end of his post. There has been no further updates since this though, leaving fans to wait and wonder whether Sleeping Dogs will finally make his comeback to the big screen. If you found this breakdown useful, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the stories behind the games we play. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.